Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, my Karen coworker lies about being part Native American. Big mistake. I was speaking with coworkers and the topic of a nearby town came up. The town has a difficult to pronounce name, and my coworker made a comment about who the heck came up with that name anyways. I pointed out that it was a word from a Native American language. My coworker replied with, "Well, I'm allowed to joke about it then. I'm part Native American." My coworker appears very white. From what she's told me, her family has lived in the same rural area for years, and this is the first time she's mentioned anything about this. Curious, I asked her what nation she was from, and she said she had a Cherokee ancestor. I asked if she's registered with the Cherokee tribe, and she says no. I asked who the ancestor was, and she says her great-great-grandmother was a Cherokee princess. Here's where I might be the jerk. I'm white, and I know very little about Native Americans, but I do know that some people love to claim to be Cherokee without any evidence to back it up, and that the Cherokee Nation doesn't have princesses. I know this because my estranged aunt used to say the same thing, while everyone else in my family said they had literally never been told about any indigenous ancestry. A DNA test of another aunt proved this later on. So, and this is where I might have been rude, I tell her that the Cherokee don't have princesses, and she's probably wrong. She got really defensive and insisted it was true. I told her that a lot of white people claim to be Native, but they aren't, and that with DNA tests, there isn't really an excuse not to look into it. Needless to say, the vibe became awkward quickly, and this coworker has been ignoring me since and seemed upset with me. Another coworker said I should have just let it go and not said anything. My reasoning is, if she's going to say what she did, she better be darn sure it's correct. So, am I the jerk? Edit. This is probably my fault for how I wrote it, but I promise the conversation was very casual until the princess part. I was genuinely curious, and she seemed happy to share her answers. We aren't near the Cherokee Nation. I live in New England, and I know there are white-passing people with indigenous heritage. Not the jerk. Man, that Cherokee princess thing never ends. How many princesses did they have to have so many people descended from them? The answer is 0, of course, but man, that doesn't stop anyone. The real reason the Cherokee ancestor keeps getting handed down is that it's a way to explain why this or that kid comes out a little bit darker than everyone else. Gosh, it must be that Cherokee princess that great-great-grandma was descended from. Soft, everyone sucks here. OP, it sounds like your heart is in the right place and you admit to knowing very little about Native American history. That said, blood quantum is a very touchy subject, and I'd steer clear of it because you have no figurative or literal skin in the game. As a white-passing tribal member myself, my understanding is that DNA tests are often flawed because the indigenous sample set is far too small and potentially dubious in nature. I have the good fortune of a well-documented family history on my side, going back to just before the Trail of Tears. I'm not Cherokee, but a tribe that was originally from a similar area and often gets claimed by folks who are non-indigenous as well. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their coworker? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for wanting to divorce my husband because he wants a son? I, 27 female, have been with my husband who's 29 for 5 years, married for 3 of those years. Our marriage was perfect and we were so happy. It felt like our entire life was perfect. Church on Sunday, loving husband, beautiful home, all of it. A few months into our marriage, I became pregnant and my husband and I were overjoyed, and so was the rest of our family. My husband was especially happy after finding out that our baby was a boy, as he had always told me he wanted at least one son. I even started to try to attempt to repair my relationship with my mother so our son could have a relationship with his grandparents. I had originally cut off most contact with my mother due to how she treated my brother when he married his husband, though my brother said he was alright with my decision to try and get back in her life, since he still has love for her and my baby was her first grandbaby. However, our son ended up stillborn and it broke me. I fell into a deep depression, but my husband was there for me during all of it and we got through the grief. Our marriage felt stronger than ever and life started slowly feeling beautiful again, even if it no longer felt perfect. About 5 months ago, I found out I'm pregnant again, and then found out soon after that we're having triplets. My husband and I were over the moon, and he was the most doting and loving husband. Since we had always said we wanted 2 to 3 kids, we agreed we wouldn't try for any more after this. Because of our and our family's excitement for the triplets, we decided to throw a baby shower and gender reveal party. We trusted my brother with the genders of the triplets, and he bought some confetti cannons with the colored streamers inside. The baby shower went wonderfully with my parents, in-laws, my brother and his husband and their daughter, with tons of friends and extended family. It was like a dream come true, and I was so excited for the gender reveal. I don't care what the gender of our baby was, I just wanted healthy little babies, but my husband was clearly excited for potentially 3 sons. When the time came, me, my husband, and my brother all shot a confetti cannon, and all 3 of them shot out pink confetti. I was so excited, and so was my brother, but my husband screamed at the top of his lungs, and he hit the table in front of us, hitting it so hard that it actually broke. He screamed at me that I was supposed to give him at least 1 son, because what happened to the first one was my fault. That's when I burst into tears. I had been so broken up about that, and a part of me had felt it was my fault, and now my husband was, the love of my life, telling me that it was. My brother immediately stepped in and tried to get my husband to calm down, but my husband shoved my brother. So my brother instead pulled me aside, where I cried in the living room while my husband's mother tried to calm him down. I could hear him screaming outside about how 3 daughters is too many, how he doesn't want 4 kids, but he also wants a son. Ever since that moment, my husband has hardly talked to me. He's been sleeping in the guest room, and when we do interact, he's clearly upset and mad and tries to argue with me. I tried to talk to him about it and asked how he'll be with our 3 daughters, but he yelled and told me that he will provide for them shelter and food, but he isn't interested in having them and doesn't plan to have a close relationship with them. That sealed the deal, and I want to divorce him, and I cried myself to sleep that night. Earlier today, I confided in my mother and my mother-in-law about all of this, but they told me I can't divorce my husband just because he wants a son. I don't want my daughters to grow up in an unloving household where their parents constantly argue and their father doesn't love them. The moment my husband said it was my fault what happened to our son, I lost all love I had for him in an instant, and I don't want my daughters to be in that kind of a household. However, both my mom and mother-in-law say it's just natural for men to want sons, and that at least he isn't saying he'll mistreat them. They treated this as absolute fact and acted as if I'm being silly and I just don't know anything. I felt incredibly small and stupid. I don't know what to do. My mother and mother-in-law make me feel like I may be overreacting to my husband's behavior, but my brother says this is not normal as he and his husband are both men who absolutely love their daughter. I'm also not sure of what I'll do with myself if I divorce my husband. I don't work, and I'm not sure how I'll be able to find a job that can support me and 3 babies all on my own, or how I'll make time for all of them when I have to work. I feel so lost and helpless. I'm torn on what to do because I worry divorce will be too brash of a decision and that maybe my mother and mother-in-law are right. Am I the jerk? What should I do? First, stop sharing your feelings on this and your plans on this with your mother-in-law and mother. They made you feel like you're wrong. This guy says he isn't going to care for them right. He blamed you for the baby. You can't stay with this guy. If you get pregnant again, no guarantee it would be a boy. What then? He meant everything he said because he still isn't talking to you. Think about it. He treated you this way over something you have no control over. Chew on that for a bit. Stop talking and listening to them. You cannot stay with him. You have to know that. Not the jerk. You're not divorcing him because he wants a son. You're divorcing him because he said some truly unforgivable things. I'm so sorry about your son. Please know it wasn't your fault. Your husband is truly vile to say what he did, and that alone is grounds to end your marriage. Good luck, OP. Not the jerk. I would sleep with one eye open knowing that dude is in the other room thinking weird thoughts like that. I'd also move far away now and change my name. He ain't normal. Am I the jerk for refusing to share my inheritance with my dad and brother after discovering a family secret? My grandma, my dad's mom, left me, 27 female, my dad's portion of her inheritance, but left him and my brother, who's 30, nothing. For context, me and my brother have never met my granddad. According to my dad, he and his father had a very toxic relationship. After my dad and my mom met, they started dating in university and they had my brother. My parents then got married, which made my grandpa stop talking to my dad. A couple of years later, they had me, and we've been living happily ever after. After my grandpa passed, my dad began to spend more time with his mom. We got to also spend more time with her, and we even spent Christmas holiday at her house. She was this sweet old lady who just loved us so much. Her energy was so electric and contagious. I'm not lying when I say that Christmas as a teenager was my most favorite cherished times. Sadly, my grandma passed last year. After her funeral, I and my two aunties were called to speak to a lawyer. She had a house worth more than £500,000. For context, she lived near Oxford, and over $200,000 worth of cash and other heirlooms. When we went through the inheritance, the lawyer explained that she divided it into 3 equal parts. It was between her 2 daughters and me, who got my dad's share of the inheritance. She left her son nothing. When my dad found out, he protested and asked how that was possible, but I wasn't too concerned. During the proceedings, my grandma's lawyer, who was in charge of the inheritance, gave me a letter written by her a year ago. In this letter, to be read after her passing, she explained that her husband, my grandpa, had disowned my dad completely. This is because my dad is not my brother's actual father, as he's a child from a previous relationship my mom had. My dad met my mom when she was pregnant with my brother. My grandparents, my granddad in particular, thought this was extremely weird. He did not approve of this and was vehemently against it. My dad didn't listen and married my mom a year after my brother was born, which prompted my grandpa to excommunicate him for good. During the years, my grandma stayed in contact with my dad, but we, my brother and I, did not meet her until after my grandpa passed. The thing is, neither my brother nor I knew that my dad wasn't his biological father. A day later, my dad called me to discuss the inheritance, but I didn't want to meet him. He doesn't know that I know, and I don't know how to tell him that I know. I haven't received any money yet, but based on this, I feel like I will not share it. My family are understandably calling me greedy, but I just don't really trust them anymore. This is already causing huge division in my family, and now I feel like dropping this news will destroy my family completely. Should I just be truthful about the reasoning, or what should I do? Not the jerk. First of all, you are not the jerk about the inheritance no matter what you decide. Your grandma had a clear reason for what she did, so it's not like there's any funny business that would make her will invalid. Secondly, it sounded like you're struggling with the info your grandma shared, and that's completely fair because it's a lot. I have some thoughts. What your dad did, choosing your mom even though she was already pregnant, and raising your brother so well that you never even suspected, that is an amazing act of love. I understand that it upset your grandpa, but from my perspective, your dad is the real hero here, loyal to your mom and loyal to your brother. I would hate it if you came out of this blaming your dad or blaming your brother, neither of whom did anything wrong. I think it's really sweet that your dad and grandma managed to reestablish their relationship after your grandpa passed. Should you tell? I don't know. In general, my instinct is that secrets fester. Now that you know this, it's going to be hard for you to hide your strong feelings. Also, keep in mind that everyone in your family knows, at this point, except your brother. Raising the topic might be hard, but reread my previous paragraph about what a loyal hero your dad is. He loved your brother because he chose your brother, along with your mother. I kind of feel like your brother deserves to know. Finally, you don't need to decide about the money right away. Your grandma dropped a crazy amount of information on you, and it's completely reasonable for you to want a while to process. You could even tell them that. As a general rule, when you get a big chunk of money, there is no hurry. You can leave it in cash for a while. You can invest in safe mutual funds. I like Vanguard. No harm in letting it sit for a year or 2 or 3 while you figure things out. People who are all excited to do something right away typically make bad decisions. What? Good man gets disinherited for being a good man, and you think OP isn't the jerk for continuing a level of spite so vicious it's reaching out from beyond the grave to inflict more harm? Yeah, OP is just a greedy jerk and is simply looking for a reason to justify keeping the money. The grandparents were trash, tried to ruin their son's family from beyond the grave, and OP is siding with them. Even worse, I wouldn't be surprised if Dad wants to talk about the inheritance, not even for himself, but to ensure the brother gets something. The brother probably feels like crap and is confused why he was left out of the will. Well, what would you do if you were OP? Would you share the inheritance or not? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for telling my husband his parents can't stay for 5 days? I, 25 female, told my husband, who's 28, that Wednesday to Sunday was too much for his parents to stay just for Thanksgiving. He said that was unfair because he doesn't get to see them often. For context, his parents live about 2 hours away, and he could literally see them whenever he wants to. His parents also have a history of visiting and extending their stays without asking. Additionally, he claimed it isn't fair because we see my parents so frequently, who only live about 20 minutes away in the next town over, which I felt was unrelated as I never pressure him to see my parents. Most times I go see them or spend time with them alone, and he has the option to join or not. I tried to explain that it isn't a competition or personal slight against his parents. I just don't want company for that long, especially when that would be the entire time I have off from work. I've been working long hours lately, and I was excited about time off to just decompress, which was a big part of me bringing this up. Long story short, he thinks I'm being unfair and should let them stay for however long they like. So, without more rambling, am I the jerk for this? Edit. Just wanted to answer some recurring questions I keep seeing. I deep clean before they come, and I do the maintenance cleaning while they're here. I usually just ask him to make their bed and to get them clean towels. I cook nearly every time they stay and handle the groceries, and he may cook a breakfast or a dinner for one of the days, but sometimes he cooks more. He does not inform me of their plans and never has. He might casually mention they're coming to stay the week of, but never says for how long or in advance. This has happened several times. This is the first time I've ever asked them to stay for a shorter time. They're still very much welcome. I just ask that they leave Friday or Saturday morning at the latest. Not the jerk. This isn't about how much you see each other's parents. It's about having them in your home for so long. You'd be trapped with them. This is the time that you're going to be off from work? That makes it even worse. Agreed. Hubs can go visit them for 5 days, and OP comes on Thanksgiving. Or as others mentioned, they can stay at a hotel. I bet if OP doesn't conveniently go on a last-minute trip or stay with family for a few days, in-laws will decide last minute to extend their stay to 1 week or longer. And I bet OP will have to do all of the hosting. Rather generous of Hubs to not worry about in-laws staying when he doesn't have hosting responsibilities. Do Thanksgiving, then go stay in a hotel Friday through Sunday. Sleep, read, get room service, and relax. Not everyone is in a financial position to stay in a hotel for a few days though. Then stay at her parents. Solved. Info. Have you presented the idea of them getting a hotel nearby for those days? It can be daunting having guests stay in your home for long periods, but it sounds like he misses his family and wants to spend time with them. It's understandable if he doesn't see them very often. Not the jerk. 5 days, your entire time off, is too long for people who only live 2 hours away. You have a husband problem. Letting his parents decide how long they'll stay is not good. Not the jerk. My husband used to try pulling this same crap with me, but I put my foot down at the beginning of our relationship. I told him no overnight visitors, no matter what. Well, the first time he told me his parents were coming to spend the weekend, I said okay. Took myself to the Hilton and had a relaxing mini vacation, courtesy of his credit card. You may pay the mortgage, but this is my house too, and if I don't want anyone staying overnight, they won't be. He learned his lesson quick, and his mom even texted me apologizing for intruding. She said she didn't know how strongly I felt about them not coming over because my husband hadn't said anything about it. I told her, gee, maybe if you'd talked to me about it like a normal person, instead of your mama's boy son, then you would have known I have no desire for you to stay over. She didn't text back, shocker, but of course she complained to my husband about me being rude, like I was in the wrong. I made him cut contact with him after that, and we haven't spoken to them in the past 6 years. They send Christmas cards, but when I'm the one who finds it in the mail, I just trash it without telling hubby. You go, girl. I know the pain of dealing with a man-child who wants mommy and daddy to stay overnight. I didn't go to the Hilton when my in-laws came over, but I did go stay at a work friend's house. He is a guy, but we are just friends and have never been anything more than platonic. Call me petty, but just to spite my husband, I said very clearly in front of his parents, there's TV dinners in the freezer. I'll be at Arnold's all night and should be back tomorrow around noon. His parents didn't say anything, but I could see the confusion on their faces. I know he had fun explaining that one to them, since boomers think we as wives should not have male friends. Some of these comments are just, ew. Why even marry a man if you're going to treat him like this? And why would these guys stay married to you if this is how you act, when he doesn't bow down to your every wish? Couples are supposed to work through their problems together, not pull this kind of crap. Sometimes I feel bad about being nearly 40 and still never married. But when I see this kind of stuff, I think I might be the lucky one. Am I the jerk for telling my friend's boyfriend that he shouldn't have been allowed to eat? Some friends and I decided to do the trend where we have a dinner and everybody brings a food that starts with the first letter of their name. There is one of our friends who's a bit of a moocher. Whenever we go out, she never pays for stuff, whether it's the dinner bill, tickets for the movies, etc. We always end up paying for her. But everyone accepts this and doesn't really have an issue with it. However, recently, it's become worse. She's been dating this guy for a couple of months, and she brings him everywhere with her, even when he's not invited. So now we have two people to pay for. Also, I feel like I have to say that they have jobs. They're not struggling. It would be different if they were broke. Then, of course, I wouldn't mind. But yeah, we had the dinner last night and everybody brought food and put a lot of effort into it. These two, however, showed up with absolutely nothing, not even a bottle of soda. We were annoyed, but nobody said anything. It wasn't until the end of the night when they were leaving that I cracked a little. The friend's boyfriend was taking home all of the barbecue ribs that were left. I repeat, all of the barbecue ribs. And it was a lot. Like, dang, be considerate at least. He emptied the entire tray of ribs into a container. That's when I politely asked, "Can you maybe not take all of it? The others might want some too." He got all defensive and asked, "Why are you treating me like I'm stealing all the food?" I clarified that I never said such a thing and that I only asked that he didn't take all of it. He got angry, plopped the ribs back and said, "Fine, I don't need your food." To which I replied, "It kinda seems like you do. And to be honest, you shouldn't have eaten at all since you didn't contribute anything, as usual." Then my friend came, took him, and just left without saying anything. Now apparently she's angry with us, mainly me. Most of my friend group doesn't think I did anything wrong, but there are a couple who are saying I shouldn't have said anything. The thing is that I didn't even say anything to my friend because I don't mind that she doesn't contribute. Her boyfriend was the one irritating me. He eats the most food, but doesn't contribute, drinks the most alcohol, doesn't contribute, orders really expensive meals at restaurants, doesn't contribute towards the bill. I guess I kind of got annoyed and snapped at him. I tried phoning her to clarify that I don't have any issue with her, but she's ignoring me. I don't know, maybe I should have just left well enough alone. You're not the jerk for this event, but why on earth do you and your friends tolerate them mooching like that? Tell them that they need to pay their own way and do it. If you go to a movie, buy your own tickets and let them pay or leave. Get separate checks at restaurants. When the server first comes to the table, tell them you'll need separate checks. As a former restaurant employee, I can tell you that it's fairly easy to split a check if you know it'll be split before you start entering things, and a royal pain to go back and split a check you entered together. You and your friends have been complete doormats. When you let bad behavior repeatedly go unchallenged, it never stops and often worsens. Honestly, I would stop inviting them to join y'all. You all have created a mooched monster by not putting a stop to her behavior ages ago, but it's time. She's an adult and needs to pay her own way, not the jerk. Were you born a doormat, or did your parents teach you to be a doormat? Nature or nurture? I'm always curious. You know what? You're the jerk. By submitting and accepting their horrible behavior, you're only encouraging it and reinforcing it. These people are not your friends. They are users and you allow it. Grow a spine. Colleague thinks she's the big boss. This happened a few years ago. I was working for a company doing special projects that had to do with building certain products. One Friday evening, I get a call from the CFO. This guy never called me before. I didn't even know he had my number. Who liked playing at project management sometimes. He tells me that there's been a huge mistake in the project. I ask him if it was a project I was involved in. No, it had nothing to do with me, and they desperately needed people to come in on Saturday and Sunday and work because this project needs to be delivered to the customer on Monday morning, and would I be able to go? I say sure. In this company, any work on Saturday and Sunday was overtime from the first minute, and the overtime rate was good. He told me I would be joined by 5 of my colleagues, almost all of them a delight to work with, and one more person that is also a colleague, but has all of the information regarding this project, so she would lead it and tell us what's needed to be done. Let's call her wannabe genius boss lady, in a cynical way, of course. She is not in any way, shape, or form a genius. Everybody working on this project has at least 3 years experience in the company. Some have more than 10, so there wasn't any need for a babysitter. This fact matters for the rest of the story. Saturday morning rolls around and I get to location. We all meet and have some coffee and homemade cookies that my wife made for us. Genius comes in, asks us to gather around, and explains that this project was done wrong from the get-go. The company spent hundreds of man-hours on it, and it was all done wrong. And we have 2 days to not only disassemble everything that was put together, but redo it from scratch in the correct manner, which not only involved putting it back together, but also refabricating parts that were done wrong. Then she goes on to say in these exact words, "I'm your boss. You do what I say. I have the schematics in my hand. If you don't know something, ask me, and I'll tell you how to do it." We all look at each other with a puzzled look, but we just shrug our shoulders. Then she quickly, and I mean quickly, lays down some rules that she wants us to follow. Stupid things that just interfere with our jobs, but no one actually caught all of them. So we start working. Like I said, we are all experienced. We work in another facility that the company owns, and we're brought especially to fix this facility's mistake. All through the job, Genius does nothing except get in our way, asking stupid questions, drinking coffee, taking smoking breaks, treating people badly, and making up stupid rules as she goes. At some point, the CFO comes in and starts talking to me, and in the conversation, he says these words: "No matter what, no one works overtime. No more than 12 hours a day, no matter what." Because it's a Saturday, the rules allow us to work up to 12 hours, but more than that, and the company can get fined. Genius promises the CFO that the job will be done no matter what within those 2 days of 12 hours. Saturday's work is done after 12 hours, and we all say goodbye and leave, coming back the next day. We get to work again with her making the atmosphere worse and worse by the minute, not trusting us when we say we're going to do something, hovering over us, and generally being a nuisance. As the day goes by, we can see that we are not going to make it on time. We try to tell her that, but she's adamant that this will be done on time. I tried to explain to her a few times that seeing how much work there is, and her insisting we do not use automated tools, it's not possible to finish this in the 5 or 6 hours we have left. There was a lot more crap that she tried to pull, but I won't name all of it just to save time. She won't hear it. She says the job will be done. I'm like, whatever, dude. I'm just gonna do what I can since you won't listen. 1 hour before end of day comes around, we've all been working for 11 hours. Genius finally realizes it's not going to work. She calls a real project manager, her friend, and starts talking to him. I hear her talking on the phone, and she's blaming us for not working fast enough, and tells him she promised the CFO to have this done. I'm assuming she was betting on riding this success into a promotion or something, and she doesn't know what to do. Then she walks out of the building and continues talking out of earshot. After a few minutes of conversation, she comes back in, telling us to round up again so she can talk with us. With fire in her eyes, she goes, "Okay, you," points at a guy. "Don't leave until this," points at one of the parts of the project, "is done. You," points at me. "Don't you leave until that part is done." And she continues doing this until she counted off everybody. And then she walks off, I'm assuming for another coffee or a smoke break or whatever. Cue malicious compliance. Exactly 12 hours after arriving, we all put down our tools and start heading out the door. She's shocked, asking us, "Where are you going?" We all say we're going home. We've been here for 12 hours. She says, "I told you that none of you leave until your parts are finished and tested." To which we reply, "No more than 12 hours, no matter what," and we leave. Later on, I found out that she stayed by herself until 4 in the morning to finish it all by herself. She couldn't do it and had to go home as well. Her project manager friend came in that morning to help her finish the job. The project was late, customer came in to pick it up and wasn't happy to see it was still not packaged and ready to go. Just as a side note, with the exception of Genius, I've known each of the people working on this project for a few years. All of them would gladly have stayed longer to help finish the project. They've done this so many times in the past when called upon, if she hadn't treated us that way. We made sure to make management aware of this, and she was never given another opportunity to manage something. Karen demands Christmas dessert samples. Context: for every holiday, my mother would ask the women in the family, my sisters, sister-in-law, my wife, my female cousins, to send samples of the desserts they planned to bring to the celebration for testing and to see if these desserts could make it to the food menu. My wife has been complaining about my mother deliberately rejecting every dessert sample she sent. So many times, my mother has told her that she's being honest and keeping the guests' best interests at heart. Yet, my wife still thought that my mother was deliberately excluding her since 2 of her dessert samples were rejected before. For this year's Christmas, my mother is doing the same thing, but this time, she told every woman who's participating to make a cookie sample and send it to her for testing. My wife took it as a challenge, and to be honest, she worked really hard to make a good sample and sent it to my mother days ago, and the results just came in yesterday. I came home from work and found my wife upset. I asked her what was wrong, and she told me that my mother rejected the sample she sent and decided to exclude her from baking from the menu list and the menu for Christmas this year. I didn't know what to say, but then she told me that she was backing out of the invitation to attend Christmas with my family. I was stunned when I heard her make this statement. I tried to talk to her, but she said it was done. I called her unreasonable to decide to bail on the whole family over some cookie sample. That's just crazy and quite unreasonable. We had a full-on argument about it, and she stated that my mother caused this, but I told her that my mother is pretty serious and careful about the food she offers to the guests, since we are going to have relatives coming from all sides of the country. She told me to stop mentioning it. Later, I heard her cry, despite telling her that her baking is amazing and people have preferences, that's all. Am I the jerk for insisting that her decision was unreasonable? Info. If you're asking whose cookie sample made it to the menu, the answer is my sister and my 2 cousins. Info. A few things to put on here. 1. My wife wasn't the only one whose sample was rejected. We have sister-in-laws, my brother's wife, and my younger sisters. My mother did not force anyone to participate. It was up to whoever wanted to take part. 3. This is just about the dessert, since my mother tends to be very careful in this category. But for other types of foods, dishes, appetizers, salads, stuff like that, it's all welcome, as she stated. Update. Great. So I just got off the phone with my brother, and he told me that his wife is doing the same thing as my wife, and that she has decided to back out of the invitation to spend Christmas with family as well. Turns out my wife must have told her about her decision, and she decided to follow her lead. My brother is upset, saying my wife is encouraging his wife to do this. I see that the problem has just gotten bigger now. Who knows? My younger sister might join in and decide not to go as well. I don't know how this got out of control so quickly. I guess we'll try to have a discussion with my mother about this and see how it goes. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but for years and years, your mother has demanded that all the women, why not the men too, in your family send in samples. For years and years, your wife has tried her hardest to appease your mother, had pushed herself to the limit, and has been left completely and utterly demoralized each and every time by a humiliating tradition enforced by the holiday tyrant. And, even worse, her shame was publicly put on display each and every year, as other family members would no doubt notice that, once again, her food was not chosen. Finally, after producing something she was unbelievably proud of, she was once again left embarrassed and most likely deeply hurt, as she was deemed not good enough for yet another year. This is the straw that broke the camel's back, and she decides she's had enough of her humiliation, and that she will not give her cruel mother-in-law the satisfaction of seeing her discomfort on such a big day. She makes a boundary that many would have made a long time prior, and her husband tells her she's unreasonable for setting up boundaries? Dude, come on. You know you're the jerk. You're the jerk. I'd never in a million years bake samples to be approved. I'm showing up with my food. Eat it or not, I really don't care. Your mom is the jerk and very, very weird. You're the jerk. Your mom is also a jerk who takes samples in and makes others feel bad because of their cooking. This tradition sucks, and I get why OP's wife doesn't want to go. Not the jerk. Did y'all read it all? Yes, she asks all the women, but it's always a yes or no thing. You either want to or you don't. Simple. This only happens in the dessert category, and you can bring whatever for any other category. She doesn't care. This idea is good because it saves the wife from even greater humiliation when she says it's good, but it's not, and she brings it to the function and no one eats it. If her food isn't good, why should everyone be forced to eat it? She can literally bring something else that isn't dessert. The mother is being honest and not biased because obviously other people were not chosen. Like, I've been to so many functions, and there's always that one plate of utter rubbish, and my mother would tell us to always try it so the owner of the plate doesn't feel bad. Not the jerk. And your wife should stop sending samples. Your wife is married to you, not your mom. And you cannot get mad if she stops sending samples either, because it's clearly a waste of time since it's likely going to be like the same 2 to 4 family members. Keep it real. You know this. I understand the pride because she wants to feel included, but it's been 3 times and it's a blow mentally. Definitely get your wife an extravagant gift for Christmas and let it be known it's for all the delicious cookies she's giving you all year long. Cookies like love, care, passion, etc. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP and his mom or his wife? Please let us know. Just let people bring what they want. His mom's really overcomplicating this. Am I the jerk for telling my dad that I'll gladly spend Christmas with him if he gives me back my college fund as a Christmas gift? To make this brief, I, male 32, had issues with my dad after my mom passed and my stepmom came along. I hated a lot of decisions that were made, but what has left a long-lasting impact was taking my college fund to pay for my stepbrother's surgeries. Unfortunately, he's passed on. He passed last year at the age of 16 from a chronic heart problem. I keep my distance, but still see my grandparents and uncles and aunts, cousins, etc. With the holiday season coming up, Dad started talking to me through some relatives, close relatives. He went on about his overwhelming feelings of loneliness, his upcoming divorce, and invited me to spend Christmas with him because he's alone and heartbroken. As a response, I told him I'll gladly spend Christmas with him if he gives back my college fund in a form of a Christmas gift. He and the others didn't like my response. He thought this was harsh, and my relatives said that I was a judgmental, petty, greedy jerk to say this to him after he's lost so much. They said he did all he could to save his stepson, my stepbrother, which they described as noble and that he doesn't owe me a thing. I went home after a big argument with my uncle who came at me for what I said. Now I feel like crap. Maybe I should have just calmly, politely declined the invitation and not said this to him and made him feel guilty for how he handled my stepbrother's situation. Edit. I just took a look and I see that I'm getting a ton of comments here. To answer a few questions. 1. The fund was made by my dad. Mom was a stay-at-home mom and didn't work, but they both agreed that this fund would go towards my education. 2. I was able to get in college. I started working to pay my way and had some relatives help, but my uncle did so much for me, which is why I said I felt bad when he berated me. He holds a special place in my life, and he's the last person I want to disappoint or let down. Edit 2. Okay, for those who are saying the fund wasn't mine, whose fund was it then? I really don't get this. Maybe you can expand on how exactly the fund wasn't mine and to whom it belonged. Also, for those that think I'm being cruel to my dad after he lost so much, I try not to go out of my way to be mean or malicious. Matter of fact, I want little to nothing to do with him, but all this time, I've been playing nice to please my uncle and relatives, but that's it. Info. Where did the money in the college fund come from? Was any of it from your late mother? Because if it was 100% of your dad's money, that's very different than if he spent money your late mother set aside for her own kid's education on his new stepkid. Regardless, I think the problem is that your dad didn't prioritize you until he was lonely and now he wants your company. The college fund is a symptom of that, and it's not fair for dad to brush it under the rug. Edit, because people are misunderstanding. I'm not saying a stay-at-home mom doesn't contribute. Knowing this information, I believe that half of whatever was saved during OP's mother's lifetime was her contribution and should not have been spent by his dad. What I meant to get at with my question was to see if it was money that dad had saved up after mom's passing, for example. This is such a difficult situation. I do feel for OP, but I also understand dad's position, and I'd hope that OP eventually finds it in his heart to forgive dad. But honestly, if this is happening in the USA, then this country's horrendous healthcare and higher education systems are 100% at fault. They leave folks with debt and bankruptcy, and often with impossible choices to make. I'm so sorry for OP and his dad. No jerks here. Yeah, I can't get on board with OP's line of thinking about the college fund. Was his father supposed to let his stepson pass so OP can go to college and be debt-free? Not even a close choice for OP's father, in my opinion. I'm hoping OP is just young, and one day he'll see how difficult the situation was. Not the jerk. I don't understand these "you're the jerk" comments. There was a college fund in place, and it was used for someone other than you. Definitely not the jerk. Dad used the college fund to try to save someone's life. That's not a jerk move, it's a desperate father move. Like someone else said in another comment, Dad prioritized issues, not the kids. And he was the one that set up the fund. He did not use any inheritance left by OP's mom. Sorry, OP, but you're the jerk. I'm going to get hate for saying this. I'm shocked at how many people will say people don't have to split or give a college fund to a step-sibling, but will tell you that you're the jerk for being upset. Your step-sibling had 2 parents. You had 1. That parent took from your figure and prioritized his wife's kid and hung you out to dry. Would it have been nice to give them the money to save your step-sibling? Maybe, but that's not the question. Your parents or dad set aside money for you, and then your dad and stepmom used it on someone else. Your dad is a complete jerk to prioritize another kid over his own. Once it's set aside for your education, it's no longer his money to take back and definitely wasn't your stepmom's to use. Your dad's bad decisions are coming back to bite him. Now he's lonely because of his decisions, and I don't blame you for telling your dad exactly what he needs to do now to have you back in his life. Not the jerk. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his dad? Please let us know. I think what parents should do is not tell their kids about the college fund until it's time to spend it. That way, if an emergency comes up and they have to use part of it, their kid won't get mad at them. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.